Want to stand up in front and introduce yourself and we'll get started.
No. Here, I'll put the fancy gauges up. How's that?
It's not a question, that's getting it's cool. Oh, Wild Bill. Wild Bill.
There. So,
6 foot.
That's good.
Over 30,000.
so I'm Jimmy. I do tech support for MeasureQuick. When you guys call in, if you have any issues with it, you'll be stuck with me. I've known Jim Bergman, the creator of this thing, since 2003. I was a student of his at Cuyahoga Valley Career Center. So yeah, I've worked with him on the iManifold project for 2 years, 2014 to 2016, and then I've been with him on MeasureQuick since 2020. In between that, I worked in maintenance at Benvenue Labs in Bedford. I worked in the maintenance department on freeze dryers for combined 13 years. Worked there once when I graduated from high school for about 8 years. Then they went out of business, putting it mildly. And then went back there when they got bought out by Exilia for 5 years in 2016. So yeah, now I'm back working for Jim and doing this now. So this is looking live at the air conditioner out in the shop right now, already probed up. So I'm gonna do a project now for you guys. So this is how many of you guys have used MeasureQuick before? Okay, but not everybody. So for everyone who has not used this, anyone who hasn't used it interested in using this?
Yes.
Okay, so. So there's more to this whole program than just taking measurements quickly. It's not always quickly. We document everything that you're doing. You're collecting information on the customer, the equipment, and compiling it all in a report. And the way we do that is we do it in what we call projects. So the project is the process of collecting all the information, taking all the measurements, getting your diagnostics all in the system, and then generating it all in the report at the end. So you guys don't use Service Titan or House Call Pro or anything, right? Okay, so you guys, I'm gonna start out by just hitting the big green start button here. Like I said, my probes are already connected to this thing. There's a toolbox button down here at the bottom corner of the screen where all the probes are, and you can access them at any time and see what probes are connected to what. MeasureQuick does not just intrinsically know what probe is connected to what part of the system. It doesn't know. You have 2 line temperature clamps. It doesn't know which one's actually connected to the suction line or liquid line unless you click on it and tell it that that probe is for that measurement. So we call that mapping. I get a lot of phone calls from people with just oddball measurements, backwards measurements, and a lot of times it's a probe mapping issue. Field piece users, if you've used field piece probes before, you know there's a switch on the back of them that sets it to high side, low side, suction line, liquid line. That is irrelevant. MeasureQuick does not recognize that switch position, so it's handy as a visual indicator for you that you set the switch to whatever you map it to in MeasureQuick, so you can identify it when you're putting it on the air conditioner, but MeasureQuick does not recognize it. So anyway, probes are already on, so I'm going to start a project up. And it takes you in here where you choose what kind of project you want to do. And these are our guided workflows here, this whole section. But if I scroll down a little further, you can see projects that are not guided, just our standard cooling projects. And watch out for this kind of, I don't like this, but they made it so that you can collapse these menus. And then it gets really confusing. Like when I get a phone call from somebody asking, I'm trying to start a project and it's not doing the guided workflow thing. They think that this is the title of this whole page and that these are all guided workflows. That's not the case. Make sure that the menu is actually opened up.
What's the difference between the guided and a non-guided?
So when we first started this program, 7 years ago now, we did not have guided workflows. And so what we thought it would be nice, or at least Jim thought it would be nice, that just leave it a free-for-all that you can do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. The problem was nobody really understood the method to our madness and how to collect all the data and in what order. So a lot of people were kind of like, yeah, okay, I got this program, but I don't know what to do next. So we have a lot of veteran users who did figure it out. So we keep the old version down here, the non-guided projects. We still have them in here for veteran users who are familiar with how to do it. It's still there. What's that?
So basically, the guided will say like, enter the model number, enter the like,
Yes,
it'll go through
it'll
step by
walk you
step.
through
The other
step by
one
step.
just is
Do it.
You pick it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and the thing is with this, is it's not just taking measurements. We make a lot of calculations with the measurements. You know, I got 9 probes on that thing right now. You know, low side pressure, high side pressure, suction line, liquid line, and what have you. But we can calculate how many BTUs of cooling you're doing, how much dehumidification you're doing, efficiency. It can all be calculated, but if we don't know certain pieces of information along the way, we can't make those calculations accurately. So,
I want 99.9% efficient.
yeah. Close enough. So,
Did you turn that thermostat way down?
I put it on 70, it was on 73, and I don't think it's going to dip. I don't think it's going to dip to below 73 anytime soon.
Not with the door open.
No. And it's just regurgitating its own hot air anyway.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway, so if you look here on the guided workflows, there's installation projects and then there's service projects. The difference between those is, as you're taking all these measurements, you gotta remember that we're working on a live air conditioner, right? The operating conditions are continuously changing, so the measurements are always changing. So you can't just put video on a piece of paper or into a PDF file. You as the user have to determine when the measurements are a good representation of how the system's running, and you take a snapshot of your live measurements when you feel that's the case. So on a installation project, there's only one opportunity for a snapshot of measurements. You just take a snapshot when you've set the system up, dial everything in, take a snapshot of your measurements. That's what you're going to see on the report when you finish. Now, on a service project, we give you the opportunity to take a test in snapshot and then a test out. So the test in is meant to be done, I'm going to do this for you right now. Test in is meant to be done before you make any repairs or adjustments to the system. You put the probes on the unit, fire it up, let everything stabilize, and then get your as found condition, take a snapshot of all the measurements. Then it prompts you, you're able to generate a report. We call our vitals report, where you kind of show this report. It's broken down to like layman's terms as best we could, so that you can show it to a customer and say, you know, hey, this is what we see. How do you want us to proceed from here? Make your repairs, then take your test out snapshot. So this way the report will have a set of measurements on it before you make any repairs or adjustments, and then after. So that's the difference between maintenance or service and installation or retro commissioning. So I'm going to do a service project on package unit here. And now this next menu here, it says I can either create a new site or add or select existing equipment. Now, for the sake of me not having to run outside and away from the computer screen while we're doing this, I already established this piece of equipment in our database. So I'm going to work on what is actually now an existing piece of equipment in the database. So this is a list of nearby equipment based on the GPS location on my iPad. So I already, this is your package unit out in the shop, and now it's pulling all the customer information, equipment information out of our cloud. And I'll show you how it got there. If this were a new site, new equipment, this process would look exactly the same. The only exception is there's already data put in now. At this point, I have the probes hooked up and turned on the system, but if you're reading the directions closely, all it really says is that you need to make sure you have the 9 probes turned on. They don't actually have to be connected to the air conditioner, it doesn't have to be running yet. And this is where the guided workflows really, to me, get annoying, because it prompts you like a baby that, okay, turn the power off. Okay, turn the power on. Like, shut up. So you can lie to it. You can click on it and lie to it and tell it that the power is turned off. Just don't come crying to us if you get zapped. And then now we're into really the project part. So you see that 3 of these boxes are already checked off. And this is what I meant earlier by if this were a new site, new equipment, you know, nothing would be checked off now. I've already established this though as this is the site. Site name, I just put in your company name. By default, this would be your street address for the customer. And then customer information. So what did you say was
Groom Lake.
And what is the name of the fearless leader?
Al.
Yeah.
Do they all have a last name?
Alien.
I-E-N, it's his last name.
Yeah.
I-E-N? Okay.
Close enough.
Okay. So, yeah, that's what you would be putting in for the customer information. Then geolocate and name the equipment. This is handy when you have multiple pieces of equipment on a site. So the way we organize all the information in our database, the breakdown goes site, and then equipment on the site, and then projects performed on that piece of equipment. So this is the equipment part. So the name of the equipment, I just called it the trainer unit. By default, it would also be the street address or the model number, serial number after you profile it. But I just call it the trainer unit. If you have multiple, if it's only a single piece of equipment at a house, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing multiple, you need to be able to identify it in the future. So you can drag the pin on the map to wherever the unit is physically at, if you can see it outside on the ground or rooftop. And then profile the system. So this is what I always argue to people, the most important page in the whole program. This is how the program is able to determine what it's looking at. If I tell you I have 50 pounds of air in my tires, and that's all I tell you on my car. But you don't know what I'm driving. Am I driving a truck, a car, a four-wheeler? You don't know, you can't tell me if the measurement's good or bad. And that's the same thing with this. So there's no point in taking measurements with this thing if you don't know what the measurements are actually supposed to be. So this is where the program is learning about what it's actually looking at. So you get to this page, tell the system type, package unit, cooling with gas heat, and then, now I already did this earlier, but what you would do is take a picture of the label on the system, and it will appear right here. Here's a picture of the tag on the unit. And so now it's going to try to read this label.
The AI can read that label?
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yes. So now it's not perfect. I'm going to point out a few things that I had to correct for it. For the and I actually got a question for you guys on this. I'm really surprised by this. If you look at, explain to me how this can be. Minimum gas supply pressure is 2.5 inches, but the manifold nominal pressure is 3.5.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. Unless somebody knows something I don't.
Oh, it's the minimum, isn't it?
Well, it won't run less than 2.5. You want 3.5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or close, somewhere.
Minimum gas supply pressure for
Yeah, it's
input
minimum
adjustment.
supply pressure. So
Right, but how
you
can I
could-
get 3.5 from 2.5?
You don't.
Well, you don't. It would run until you
won't
get down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wouldn't run efficiently, but it would run.
You
So,
wouldn't lose your heat completely.
I've been seeing a lot of buildings that, in fact, Joe and I were at one, where they're running like 6 inches of gas going into the building. And they got, how many million, 2 million?
You lost me, I don't know.
That, event source.
Oh, yeah, they're running quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a 7,000 cubic foot meter, and they're running every bit of it, and everything's running,
Yeah.
so.
Better than the 23 inches that we found over at,
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Anyway,
Pushing gas valves open off the back.
Yep.
Wow. So yeah, so I had to go through and correct a few things on the profile because it did not read everything exactly right. Temperature rise range is 50 to 80. AI read it as 20 to 50. What else did I have to correct on it? Orifice size was not right. So it's handy. I mean, it read the model number, serial number, and everything. That's huge right there. Got the refrigerant charge right. BTU ratings on the heating side were all set. So it's you know, as Reagan said, trust but verify. So that's the label we're going off of. And then when you hit the blue button, it will try to read the label and scour the internet to determine what all the specs mean. So then it will take you to this profile page. And like I said, this is the most important page in the whole program. So at the top here, you see how it says nameplate and equipment photos? There are two different types of photos that you take in this program. You have equipment photos, and those will follow that piece of equipment from project to project. I just started a new project. You watch me in the big green start project button. It's a new project, but that picture is already here because I already took that picture earlier, and so that picture is following the equipment from project to project. A couple pages from now, though, there will be another page for project photos. The project photos are just to document everything that you see on today's service call. That's kind of the cover your ass page. So that's the equipment photos. And then as you go through this, I think it's pretty self-explanatory to everybody what all this stuff means. Package unit, compressor type. If you have a variable frequency drive on your compressor or your condenser fan, be sure to check this little box right here. All that does is change the power factor targets when you take your electrical measurements on the outdoor side of the system. If you have a variable frequency drive on anything, the power factor will be probably around 0.55-ish, 0.6. Whereas if you have capacitors, it's scoring your capacitor health by the power factor being 0.95 or higher. So make sure you check that box, and if it's a modulating system, it has to be tested on full speed. When you tell it that it's a 3-ton unit down here, we're expecting that unit to be trying to run at 3 tons. If it's modulating and jumping up and down, MeasureQuick has no way of knowing what the controller is trying to achieve, so it can't tell if it's doing a good job or not. So we got to have it in charge mode or test mode. The model number, serial number is all filled out from AI, tonnage, and this is what I mean. We got to know what the metering device type is. We need to know what the SEER rating is. And you tell it it's a TXV, we're scoring you based on subcooling. If you tell it's a piston, now we're scoring your refrigerant charge based on superheat. Little switch right here for oversized evaporator. That tells it if you have a evaporator that's a 1/2 ton oversized to the condenser unit. It will not be able to compensate for like a Carrier Infinity unit that has like a crazy big, 5-ton evaporator on a 3-ton condenser. It doesn't compensate that far. So superheat subcooling targets, by default they're 10, but if you have any specs from the manufacturer, put that in here. And then we get down to the heating profile. Even though I'm doing a cooling project, this is we do separate projects. There's a cooling project and there's a heating project. They're 2 different things. So
Quick question. If you have to put something in there, you just click on it and put the
Yep, you
numbers
just
in.
touch anywhere and edit it. Little
Okay.
keyboard comes up. Probably gets in your way more times than not. But yeah, even though this is a cooling only project, but because the AI is reading the label, it's trying to fill out every piece of information it can about the system. So I got everything here. Like I said, I had to tweak, minimum gas pressure, had to reset that, had to change my temperature ice targets. It had 20 and 50, not 50 and 80. Orifice size was wrong. So I did have to tweak a few things.
A lot of things.
But it's still, like I said, it's trust but verify. And then we get to filter sizes. I have to say, this program is definitely geared more towards residential service work, though it works pretty well on commercial package units as well. But the reason I say that is if you see at the bottom of the page here, I have filter dimensions, right? And this thing has 4 16 by 16 filters in it. But right now, we hide all the additional filter information because usually for residential, that's enough information right there. But if you hit the blue button here, I can now hit a bigger filter page. And the reason this is important is because one of the calculations we make is air velocity across the filters. So we need to know the surface area of the filters because we can calculate the flow volume, but we need to know the surface area of the filters to calculate the velocity. So if I leave it right now as just a 16 by 16 filter, that wouldn't be accurate. It's actually got 4 of them in here. So if I change the filter quantity to 4, that quadruples the surface area of the filters. So you got to make sure you have that information in here. Optionally, you could put the filter change date in if you know it. Filter type, that can all be documented, but it's not required.
Is that filter media scroll down?
Yes, you can choose media type. That's for specialty filters if you got April Air or anything special on there. Otherwise, you can just go with filter type, and these are just fiberglass filters. But if you have different MERV ratings, electronic filters, what have you, they can also be put in here. And that is important though too, because depending on your airflow, it could flag you for excessive air velocity depending on the filter type. So, and here's another thing too. Almost everything in this program is a button. If you have a question about almost anything, you probably try clicking on it. And then there's always call me too, the tech support guy. But if you hit this little info button here, it'll bring up a little screen that'll tell you what your allowable air velocities are for different filter types.
Exactly, no idea.
So it is important that you put that information in here. So that's the end of the profile. Next step.
Question for you.
Yep.
All right, we do these poly, what are those filters?
They're just
Tridents?
Tridents,
Well-
it's basically a 3-layer poly.
So, we have
Okay.
no idea what the.
I think it's just a higher MERV rating than a standard pleated.
Actually, I think they're MERV 8s on those.
Yeah, I think it's much higher.
Then that would be, I would just say put in, if you know a MERV rating on it, you just set it to MERV 8 if you know it's a MERV 8.
So with those two, when you've got them stretched out, you can count the panels if you want for the sizes, and that'll give you the same surface area, right?
So another thing I should mention, is everyone using iPads? Are there any phone users on this?
It's mostly phones.
We traditionally use phones.
Okay, so with the phone, what you're seeing right now with my iPad is split screen view.
So I don't see that ever on my phone.
Yeah, not big enough. So, what you would see on your phones would look something like this. You would see either your gauges or the workflow. And the only way you can toggle back and forth is at the bottom of the screen. You see where my little blue dot is here. Bottom of the screen, you can hit the gauge button at any time and see the gauges. And maybe I should actually do it like this, since there are no iPad users here.
No.
So I'll keep going. I'm gonna do it like this now. That probably better for you guys.
Yeah.
So now, next step is to zero out your manometers. Everybody familiar with zeroing out manometers, using manometers, how annoying they are when they get hot or cold, how they drift when the temperature changes? Everybody up on that? Alright, so my manometers are already zeroed out, and there's actually no ductwork for me to put them in, so they're really just sitting on the pile of boxes next to the air conditioner right now. They're not actually measuring anything. Deploy your airside probes. This is inside air temperature probes. Commercial buildings, I can see signal being an issue for you guys. If you notice at the top of the page, there's this little hold button. There's another one down here. So what that does is that you walk within signal range of your probes, hit the hold button, and now you can walk away. And it will just hold those measurements forever. I would try not to use those because as the conditions change, the measurements will not.
Where was
So-
that whole button? Oh, right up there, okay.
Yeah. So try not to use the hold button. That's strictly a workaround if signal is an issue. So now, photo document issues. These are the project photos I was telling you about that you now would take pictures of anything you see that needs attention. But it is optional. So you guys do pretty much work all around Northeast Ohio, right? You don't really go that far south, so cell service probably isn't an issue for you guys. There are no limits in here as to how many pictures you can take for each category. You can take 85 pictures for every category if you want. And what it will try to do, if I go into my photo library here, it will try to save the picture to the cloud. You see that tiny little cloud icon right there at the bottom of the caption? If you can see closely enough, it's a cloud with a check mark in it. That means that it was able to ping that picture up to the cloud as soon as you took it. If you don't have cell service where you're at, it'll be a cloud with an up arrow on it. And that means the picture is just saved on your phone, and it will try again to save it when you finish the project. The problem with that is if you take 85,000 pictures through this whole process and they're not able to sync to the cloud as you take them, you're going to overload the program at the end. So keep that in mind. We don't have any limits on how many you take, but there are technological limitations. So
That's all through you then, through the cloud, cause I need to update my cloud.
No,
Does that really matter?
it's for the app
So
cloud.
this is through the app.
Right.
cloud?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, that's what.
Yeah, it's not the iCloud. This is MeasureQuick's cloud. So I'm just throwing a few pictures out of my library on here so you see how the pictures will look on the report. But I'm not gonna take them for every category. I think you get the idea. So I'll save those pictures, and we tried to sequence this in order so that you don't have to run in and out of the house so much. So right now everything is mostly focused on the indoor unit. Next is deploy your refrigerant probes though. At this point, you're going outside. Probes hooked up outside, hold button here as well if signal is an issue. Confirm condenser is operating, it is. And now you can take your electrical measurements if you would like. I'm going to skip my electrical measurements right now. Right now I'm working on my test in snapshot, right? I have not changed anything on the air conditioner. This is just as found conditions. So for sake of time and demonstration purposes, I'm going to skip my electrical measurements on the test in phase of the process. So, but I do have a score now. I have enough information that says sensible capacity is below 90%. We're teetering on the threshold of that. And what you see is, some of these measurements are kind of on the.
A severe thunderstorm warning for your location.
Got that? So. situational awareness is everything in life and in this as well. This thing is heartless. Everything it's digital, right? Everything's ones and zeros. Every measurement has a tolerance, and if you step a tenth or a hundredth of an inch of static pressure outside that tolerance range, it's going to nail you to the wall for it. And so you have to be aware that there may be time, like sensible capacity is right on the verge. What's our sensible performance? Here's my sensible capacity. That's a live calculation right now. 93.5%. And it will probably, if it crosses below 90, it will throw that fault code up. So just, it's yes or no. Same thing with system may be undercharged with refrigerant. I've seen it where my subcooling is just a tenth of a degree in or out of tolerance. And again, if you have a question on what's the measurement supposed to be, click on the gauge. It'll bring up current value, target, tolerance. So if my current value was 6.9 and it's teetering on the fence of 7.0, you'll see the score jump up and down as it goes in and out of range. So you can't just turn the iPhone on and your brain off. You still have to be aware of what the system is actually doing. But at this point, if you deem it, too many phones, too much crap. At this point, we have enough information to take our snapshot of measurements. So at this point, the system's been running for an hour now. It's pretty stable, or as stable as it can get. So the instant I hit generate report and test in.
Can you go back to the gauges before that?
Yeah.
And then swipe through there. I want the guys to see all the different readings,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
So this is the main gauge page. Then you go through outdoor measurements, live suction line, liquid line temperature, superheat subcooling calculations. And there's 2 pages. And see those 2 little dots right there? That's our very obvious way of telling you that there's actually 2 pages there. So if you hit the little outdoor icon again, there's a second set of outdoor measurements. Now we have outdoor air temp, approach, compression ratio. I don't have a discharge line clamp hooked up to this. That's why that's blank. That is an optional probe. Unless you're on a heat pump, then it's called the vapor line, and then it's required. Indoor measurements, so supply and return, dry bulb, and dew point. I prefer dew point. There is a setting in here that you can have it display dew point, humidity, relative humidity, or wet bulb, depending on your preference. I like dew point. And again, hit the house icon again, and we can give you the air calculations, airflow, temperature split. And right now,
I like the fact, if you look at the 15 pounds an hour for dehumidification, what's that mean?
I mean, your splits can be lower because you gotta get the humidity out before you can cool the air.
What does the 15 pounds an hour give us? What does that tell us?
We're drawing it out.
Say it, Phil. Yep.
You're squeezing that moisture
So
out of the air.
how many gallons is that? 15 pounds,
About 2 gallons,
okay?
just under.
It's 8.33.
So you're just under 2 gallons an hour, and if you go out there, that floor is soaked right now. And you're gonna see this on a lot of different jobs. I like paying attention to that, because if you go back to that page, please, for me. And then you might have had it there. You had it up for a second, the latent heat and the sensible heat.
yep, that's the next page.
Okay.
So, one thing I want to point out real quick though, it's obviously really, really humid out there right now. Whenever you see round numbers on your airflow, 1200, 800, 2000, that is not a live airflow calculation. We, just given the operating conditions right now, we cannot calculate the airflow, so it's just giving you the nominal, it's a 3-ton unit, 400 CFM per ton, it's just saying that's what it should be. It's, when you see it displaying, you know, 1195, 1192, 1208, so stuff, numbers like that, you know it's actually calculating the airflow live in real time.
So-
But when you have certain faults on the system, the undercharge condition, and just the high, we have psychometric charts loaded into this thing. And so if you're outside of the range of the psychometric charts, it can't make those calculations. At least that's my understanding of it. But this is, I think, the one you're
Yeah.
talking about.
So, how many tons is this unit? It's 3 tons. How many BTU?
36,000.
Okay, and you can see it jumping around a little bit. Look at the latent heat load right now. I was talking with.
Sensible heat ratio is almost half.
Yeah.
It's going for humidity.
So, was it you, Aiden, that we were talking about getting rid of, you and Luke, the other day? Gotta get that moisture out of the air, that latent heat, before you can start dropping the temperature, right? This is where it comes in, the latent and the sensible heat.
And that's a big factor too, why our sensible capacity is low. When you get the fault code of sensible capacity below 90%, all the horsepower is getting sucked up by dehumidification. You got so much water hitting that coil, it can't make the coil that cold. And just, I mean, look at where the low side pressure is there. I mean, you got a 55-degree coil. We're sucking 80-degree air into this thing, and the supply is only 68. I mean, it's not even cool, it's not that cold of air.
Where's the toggle for the dew point humidity on this?
Gear menu, right top corner of the screen,
Okay,
and then there's a setting in here.
got it, thanks.
Would you like to see something else?
No, I just wondered where that was.
Yeah, go through the settings, man. I'm not gonna go through the whole settings menu
Yeah.
right now. It's pretty self-explanatory, but the gear menu at the right top corner, you can go through a lot of different preferences on this. There's a couple, since we're on the subject, there are a couple that I would I would argue we should take these options out of here. One of them is in the report settings. You always wanna have the report set by default to save to cloud. Basically, I pretty much set everything on except the BlueVac report. Unless you're actually doing the BlueVac report, I pretty much have everything turned on. And the other big one is this one, auto sync photos to cloud. That one should always be on. I would never turn that off. I wish they would just take that option out of here. But otherwise, you turn off the Energy Star certificate, don't need that.
So the other thing the app does is, you can talk about this, is dials in the weather and the barometric for where you're at.
Yes, last page right here.
Yeah.
That's weather station data. So if you look, outdoor air temperature probe is saying 77.7. That's the probe that I have stuck to the side of the air conditioner. This 82.4 is based on weather station data. So that's why it's a little bit different. It's not an on-site measurement.
How often does that repopulate, I guess?
The weather station data?
Yeah.
Every time you start the app, that's for sure. But you could hit the weather conditions here and we had a refresh button on here. Maybe the refresh button only comes up if it did not get the measurements when it started up.
I didn't know if Measure Quick like checked it every like 2 minutes or 5 minutes or.
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't know that.
I mean, obviously, these probes, don't they sync every 3 seconds? Is that how often they go to the cloud?
Yeah,
or-
pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
You can see the probes in Probe Manager. If you watch these Bluetooth lights change, every time it goes green means it just got an updated measurement. And then if it goes for more than a few seconds without a measurement, it segues to yellow, then orange, then red.
The reason I ask is like, you know, obviously it can be hot and humid out. you get a quick thunderstorm in and,
Yeah,
10 minutes, the
nice,
temperature
yeah.
drops 10 degrees,
Well, and the thing of it is though, and the app just locked up on me, so I gotta restart the app here. The thing about that though is, we're not using the weather station data for calculations or measurements.
for real time. Yeah.
No, it is just a little honesty check, so that if you're manipulating your outdoor air temperature probe to maybe say change, because your head pressure target, this target right here for your head pressure is driven directly off of your outdoor air temperature probe. So theoretically, if you had a dirty condenser, right, and you didn't want to clean it, you could heat the outdoor air probe up a little bit to drive the head pressure target up a little bit and make it look like everything's okay. But then on the report, you'll see this measurement, and then you'll also see this. So if you see 82.7 out, and this is saying 100, whoever's reviewing the report will go, wait a minute.
So that's real time. The other one's just.
That's really the idea behind having the weather station.
So before we get to the report, guys,
One thing and it's showing me another.
on everything else that we're looking at here, what questions do you have? Now's the time to ask them.
I don't have a question, but something to point out is you can also scroll through the menus instead of clicking on them.
Yeah.
Because then you don't like miss any of the menus.
Yeah, I can do
That's
that.
usually the way I do it.
You must keep your fingers really clean.
Yeah, like sure.
I'll tell you, like I said, I've been working with this for 5 years now. But I'm a car guy at heart, actually. And nothing pisses me off more than having dirty, greasy fingers, and I'm trying to just turn the flashlight on my phone, and I'm swiping, and I can't get shit it just, so I hate swiping on the screen. It's a lot of times it's all I can do to get the damn button to push. So, yeah, if you can make it swipe in the field, good for you.
Brian, you got anything on this before we go to the report part?
No, right now I'm just, I just put it on, it wants an update, so I'm just wanting to see if like all my AI crap, all that stuff, has everyone tried that?
It should all be
Yeah.
connected, yeah.
Should be connected.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, so they went over with the quid bits, right? That's
Yeah,
gone?
no more qubits.
Okay, so how do we actually like submit and all that?
Well, that's what we're gonna get to
Oh, okay.
next. I'm just talking about the
Oh.
operation and the
Oh.
setup here for now.
Yeah, it used to be $5 per piece of equipment that you service per
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Now it's just $50 a month. Here you go. Use it as much as you like.
Okay. Joe, you got anything on this?
No, it's all stuff.
Phil?
There's some reasonable percentages, 72 or 99 or.
Percentages
all
of what?
over the map.
Percentages of what?
Score, 88 point.
Oh.
For the,
Jimmy,
for the
you can
score,
speak to that,
well,
yeah.
really the only one that you can't control is the age and efficiency. It's taken 11 points off for this thing being 6 years old. So, I mean, theoretically, you could have a 30-year-old system that it gets an 80% score. The most points we will take off for age is 20 points. And I think if you knock this thing back to like a 2012 unit or so, you'd have 20 points taken off. If you took it back to a 1978 install date, it'd still be 20 points.
Oh, okay.
So 20 points is maxed. But yeah, if everything else is perfect on the system, you could get up to, you can still get an 80% score.
So when we get into the reports part of this, Phil, you'll see everything in print.
And so here's another thing to what? Again, situational awareness, right? Right now, my temperature split loss is 0, right? But I just saw it flickering. It was taking like 10 points off for temperature split. So, all right, what's the split? Go look at the gauges, and what's our split tolerance? So right now my temperature split's 12 degrees. I'm allowed 11.2 to 17.2.
How did you get that screen up from where you were?
I clicked on the gauge. I clicked on temperature split.
Okay.
Get out of here.
Now the thing with this system is there's no ductwork on this.
Yeah.
There's no ductwork on this thing. We just have the probes stuck to the bottom of it, right? So you have a ton of air recirculating underneath it. Not to mention the door to outside wide open, so God only knows what the wind is doing. And so you could have this measurement, I mean, look at the gauge. Here, better yet, let's look at the trends. Our supply temp is pretty steady, but look at how the return temp is jumping all over the place. So that's gonna, accuracy of measurements is everything here. If your probes are not, probe placement, by the way, ideal placement would be in the supply vent closest to the unit. And when you put the probe on, you know, this would be a bad room to do it in because you can't actually stuff the probe into the grill. You would want the probe actually stuffed inside the grill, not just in front of it. Reason being, you don't want any air currents to dilute the measurement that the probe is seeing.
So not a plenum? You'd say a register over a plenum?
You could put it in a plenum, but you want to be out of line of sight of the heat exchanger or coil. You got to be out of line of sight of it.
What are you saying here, though, is the way the air comes out and it?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
kinda-
entrainment it's called, kind of the Venturi effect. And then your return probe, you would want the return probe to stuck to the front of the main return. Now, the thing of it is with putting the supply probe in the trunk is, especially on a piston system, you can have hot, or you can have warmer or cooler spots in the coil, especially if you have high superheat on that day. And sometimes on a piston system, you might have 20+ degrees superheat depending on the conditions. That's a lot of dead coil area where there's just no liquid refrigerant boiling. You're just relying on cool vapor to cool the outlet of the evaporator. So now you have air currents in the duct that are not, you could have a cool spot and a warmer spot. So how it calculates the temperature split and your cooling capacity, it's directly related to what your temperature split is. And depending on where you put your probe, and especially on the return probe, that's another one, is the return, the return probe is what's screwing with us right now, is, return ducts are very weird in that there's not a lot of mix happening in a return. You can put the probe in on one side of the duct, and if there's one return vent that's getting hot attic air or whatever in it, you can have an airstream in the duct that, this side of the duct is cool and another side is hot. So you still need to know what the probes are seeing, what the operating conditions are. I prefer myself, a lot of times I prefer to put the return probe actually in the blower. If you're working on a residential furnace, I like to actually put, in my house right now, I do a lot of testing on this at home. I usually work from home on Fridays. Yes, it's nice. I have a set of field piece probes on my furnace all the time, and my return probe is actually stuck to the side of the squirrel cage with the tip in the blower. And the method to my madness is to try to get the air mixed. If you ran smoke through there, you can picture it pretty much being a tornado in there. I'm trying to get a mix of all the return air going back to the system. Now the problem with doing that is we have algorithms in this to detect duct leakage. We know that this target, your target low side pressure is driven very much off of your return temperature and humidity. If I were to take that probe off the unit and bring it in here where it's cooler, you would see that low side target pressure go down. So we have an algorithm that can detect if there's duct leakage. Based on the return air temperature, we know what the suction pressure should be. And if you have, say you put the return probe over the air grill in the living room, right? And so you're sucking back 72-degree air, but your suction pressure is high, it's probably gonna trigger a fault saying check for duct leakage, because you could be sucking hot attic air in downstream of the return probe. So even though the probe's seeing 72-degree return air, the evaporator is seeing 85-degree return air. So now if you put the return probe in the blower compartment, you're defeating that part of the program. Because now, if the probe sees 85-degree air coming back to the air conditioner, it just thinks that the house is hot. And the
So
pressure.
it's sucking from the attic.
Right,
Yeah.
but it doesn't know that. It just
Yeah.
thinks the house is hot.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with putting it in the blower compartment. Make sense? If you put it in over the return grill and you have high suction pressure, we know that there's an unexpected load coming from somewhere. Clear as mud?
Yep. Anybody else got any questions on the actual measurement?
I wanted to know what DP is, cause wasn't it wet bulb before, now it's something different?
No, it's been, I've had it set to dew point.
Oh,
DP
okay.
is dew point.
Said, okay,
But I can set it to wet bulb if I'd like.
gotcha.
I'm sorry, wet bulb is Greek to me. I don't study my wet bulb temperatures. I like to know what always fascinates me is seeing the return dew point temperature compared to the coil temperature.
Yeah.
And that's what I look at a lot of times.
I'd like to see grains on that.
So I see what?
Grains.
Grain. Oh, gee, not grain. Well, take it up with your buddy Jim. You wanna count the grains of moisture in the air, damn it. Actually, I wonder. How about the air density? We're calculating dew point and air density. Does that
Yeah.
count for anything?
Yeah, it's just how much air you're moving.
So anyway, I'm going to actually take my snapshot of the measurements now. These are whatever the measurements are, the instant I hit this button, that instant it is now putting all my measurements on the report. So the instant I hit the button, these are the numbers that the probes are giving.
For staff.
Yeah, I'm still actually in their company right now. For tech support issue they were having, I moved myself to their company and I forgot to move myself back to my own.
So is this our unit or is this,
This is your unit,
Okay.
yes.
it's just on
But
their,
my
on
user
their
account,
letterhead?
my user account is in their company.
Okay,
So it has their company logo with my
got it.
dream car that I identify as. I work for Measure Quick, I don't have a Viper, guys. The best I can do is identify as a Viper just to. Two can play at that game. So this is what we call our vitals report, by the way. This is what I was saying, we tried to make this as customer friendly as we could. You know, most people don't know what, you know, superheat, subcooling, you know, static pressure, you know, it's kinda like going to get your car aligned, nobody knows what camber, caster, tow is on your car. But you give little green and red target zones and say, oh, you're in the green zone, you're good to go. You know, everybody feels warm and tingly inside. That's kinda the same idea here. So,
Lightning has been detected near your location.
run,
We're all gonna die.
yep, sooner or later. So right now my superheat and subcooling is a little bit out of whack. Not by much, but. a little.
Who said why?
I did,
Are you serious?
yeah.
You wanna explain why the superheat and subcooling are out of whack?
Well, could be a few reasons, and we kind of have diagnostics on this. If you look there, right column, subcooling is low. subcooling target's 10 degrees, and superheat, we're allowed up to like 24 point, what's our tolerance? Up to 24 degrees superheat. If you look right there, it puts the tolerance in here. You're allowed 24. So, let me go through this report real quick. Actually, that's pretty much all there is to see. It puts the score on here, score breakdown. And I am a little surprised it didn't take points off for refrigerant charge losses.
After you let it all out?
Was that? Yeah, yeah.
Well, we were heavy to begin with years ago.
Yeah, and then my pressure probes, the Schrader depressor tip was sticking out a little further than I thought, and so I.
Did we pull like 1.5 pounds out of that or something?
No, we pulled out all the charge and it was like a half a pound too much.
Oh.
So this is why it's subcooling is low, right? So our tolerance for subcooling is plus or minus 3 degrees subcooling from target. So right now profile target is 10 degrees, we're at 6.1. So it is actually a little bit low on refrigerant, thanks to me. And then superheat is low. Now you tell me why it's a TXV. Why could the superheat be low, or why could the superheat be high on a TXV system? I mean, yeah, it's a little bit low on refrigerant, but you should still have a solid column of liquid hitting that TXV with 6.5 degrees subcooling. So only real reason why the superheat could be high is TXV's not opening far enough.
Well, the suction line probe's not in the right place.
Right. Now it's package unit, so really the suction line probe can't be that far away. If you're on a split system with the line set going, 1,000 feet across a hot attic, you would kind of expect the superheat to be a little bit high. But on a package unit, the suction line's not that long.
Yeah.
So, other thing, I don't, like I said, I work on freeze dryers. I don't really have the field experience on
With this,
just the high humidity load.
you got a super high latent load. You're making a ton of water.
It's extremely high heat load on this thing, even though it's not that hot out temperature wise. All the water on that evaporator, it's putting a ton of load on that, and maybe I'm kind of asking you could the valve be wide open and it just can't feed enough to?
Yeah.
Well,
satisfy
I don't
the
think
load?
so when you have subcooling in there.
That could be.
If you go back to it, if we didn't have any subcooling, I'd be worried about the charge.
Right.
When the conditions come back to standard conditions, which is where we really should be benchmarking this for the report, normal temperatures and humidities, then your superheat would probably fall right into place.
Yeah, it's just more heat than the TXV can handle right now.
And right now it's pulsing. Is that a degree or so?
If you want to see the superheat trend, right there, that's the superheat trend. And I wouldn't say that the TXV is hunting a lot, really.
No, it's just a degree or so.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that hunting.
And your subcooling's not pulsing either.
Right.
So.
And so by the way, that's this button right here. You can look at trending, see my little dot here. You can go trending or gauges.
Can you go to the grid for a minute, please? So this is the other thing, the guys don't want all this stuff, and you just want everything at your fingertips. The grid view.
Do you like this?
Yeah.
I don't. I never use it.
I don't like it.
No.
I like to see the gauges.
Absolutely useless to me. It's almost Greek.
Well, scroll up a little bit more. Look at your BTU on that too. Okay. Everything's in one place. That's why I like it. So, and I don't use it all the time.
Glad somebody uses it.
Thanks.
Otherwise, I'm usually sitting at my desk, muttering under my breath. Can't we just take this stupid thing out of here?
So back to the gauges.
So now
Yeah.
this is still. So at this point, you're still customer facing. You showed the customer that vitals report. We got a slightly undercharged condition. You can gas this thing up a little bit, get your subcooling closer to 10. Probably not much gonna do to help that superheat get into range given the heat load. but you're still facing the customer right now. So you can show them that, you can show them any issues you've identified so far, anything, loose connections, dirty fans, dirty coils. There's all kinds of stuff in here that you could be identifying along the way here. Pretty much every issue we could imagine, and every category has an other if by some miracle we neglected to mention something here. Lastly, show the customer the photos you've taken. If you have pictures of the, any pictures of, dirty filters, closed vents, anything you want to show the customer, show them your picture section. That's the whole idea of it being here. And so now you have to decide what's the course of action here. Are you gonna make repairs or adjustments to it, or is anything necessary? So if you hit the yellow or red button, the customer, no repairs needed, or the customer denies the repairs, yellow or red button is gonna finish the project on the next page. But what fun would that be? We still got another, 25 minutes to go?
Sure.
So, you say customer accepts the, what's that?
That's what I would say.
What's that?
I'd say it needs some ductwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there's that.
I know a good guy for that, Brian.
Did he?
He knows how to wrap it good.
So if you hit customer accepts the repairs, now we're on to actually making our repairs on the system. So at this point, you got your fault codes, what needs to be addressed, and first line of business is the Measure Quick Phone a Friend program. If you have an issue that you're not sure what to do about, you can hit stream data here, and all this will do when you hit the start stream, this will make your measurements viewable in gauge form to anyone in the company. So you start that up, and anyone in your company would be able to scroll through the gauge screen like this. That's all it does.
And we can see that on the desktops in here, or you could send it to Kevin. We did that before.
Yeah,
didn't we?
anyone else in the company that has the app on the home page, there's a test tracker. Yeah, there's a test tracker screen on the home page. You'll be able to see anyone in your company who has their data stream turned on. So next is the corrective actions. So now this is going to look suspiciously similar to the last checklist, only this is the reprisal checklist. The last checklist was what you observed as far as faults and issues go. This is what you actually did to repair those issues. So if you saw, the fan's dirty, vents are closed, say you clean the fan, open the vents, refrigerant charge, if it's you added refrigerant to it, clean the condenser, stuff like that. Put that on here. One other thing I should point out, I neglected to mention this. See this little X button at the left top corner? Think of that like the cancel button in Windows. I get a lot of phone calls from people saying, well, maybe not a lot of phone calls, but sometimes I get phone calls from people saying that they put all this information in and then it loses it. And it's probably because you get the X mark, not the check mark at the right top corner, or the continue button at the bottom of the page.
Forget the X.
Yeah, don't use the X button.
X the X.
No.
Unless you
Go ahead. Oh, sorry.
unless you don't want to save the information you put on that page. If you put wrong information in and want to cancel, then hit the X.
So going back to people being able to see, so once you plug all that information in, you say you needed this, this, and this. So say if I did this just now, but next year, Tom goes out there, he can click on, okay, here we are from Lake. All that information's still gonna be pulled up, he can view that then at that point?
Are you referring to this?
Yeah, that type of stuff,
Or
yeah.
the
No.
report.
No, that will not be viewable to you in the field next year.
Okay,
That's-
that's what I was wondering. So
No.
kind of like a running log of, okay, this is what we've done to the equipment,
It's stored in our cloud.
but not to each other?
No,
Okay,
no. Think of the project like your work order. This is unique to this project. So
Alright.
when he goes out a year later, he's gonna start a new project. The project you're seeing right now is archived.
okay.
So if you go back to that streaming portion for me, please.
Which part?
Streaming.
Data stream?
Yeah, data stream. So
I've got a question. said you archived this project, and
Yes.
next year would be another project. Is
Yes.
there a way to check both projects to see changes and stuff over a year?
No,
2
and the
years?
reason being that the operating conditions will probably not be the same next year. I mean, just right now, for example, how humid and hot it is right now, what are the odds that you go out there and it's, 90 degrees and 90% humidity?
I got you.
So it's not an apples to apples comparison, and that's why we do the benchmarking thing that I'll show you in a second.
It'll probably snow it.
So with the stream data, Brian, that's if you're on a job and you're fighting a problem, you can stream it to anybody else that's in the company signed up.
Well, that's what, yeah, cause I was, when you talked about that was really neat, cause, we haven't done that, at least I haven't done that, I don't know if you guys have done any of that.
You and I did that a
We
couple
did.
times.
Years ago.
Yeah. So it's something that we can actually watch on the desktop. It's the same screen that he's got on his phone.
So you said the conditions wouldn't be right, but if you have that weather, then it could, you gotta talk to Bergman, he'll write in a new code.
Yeah.
It'll take,
Yes. It just so happens that.
I mean, the opportunity's there.
It just so happens you were here, it's a sauna this year and it was a sauna when we were here last year.
How come I can't see both of them?
Oh,
Yeah.
God, our programmer would have a stroke.
Jim's bored, give it to him.
Jim doesn't do programming, he doesn't do
I-
code,
I
Bobby
know.
does code.
But it would give him something to do.
Bobby would go jump off the 480 bridge, I swear to God.
That's closed anyways.
Yeah, I can't take it no more, I'm out. He only owns part of the company, he'd have a nervous breakdown, and I wouldn't blame him.
So, everybody's good on this so far?
Yeah, I just thought it'd be nice to be able to see, like, if we had changed a motor last year, and then
Yeah.
didn't write it on a ticket on the piece of equipment, but we could click, oh yeah, right here it is.
Well, there is one thing in here you could do, and it's coming up here, see this where it says enter notes? This notes page, I usually make a joke out of this notes page, and I'll get to that in just a second here. Let me stay in order.
But it's not a joke, is it? Potentially useful.
Well, yeah, kinda.
Is there a
So,
history page?
so real quick, like I said, stay in order here. System repair diagnostics. This checklist here is required. You have to check every box. I do not like this. I think this is redundant because I don't know about you guys, but if you tell me I have to check every box on a page in order to continue, I'm gonna go like this and hit continue. So it's our best effort to kind of slow you down and try and make you pay attention to what's going on. It's above my pay grade to get rid of it, otherwise I would. So now, it's prompting me to take electrical measurements again. Now, what kind of meters do you guys use? Anyone use
We've got a couple of each.
the redfish and field piece?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is a 3-phase unit, so the only meter that works in MeasureQuick with 3-phase would be the redfish meter.
Okay.
So if you would like to watch me take electrical measurements with this, we can. Otherwise, I can skip it. What do you guys want to do?
Let's do this next time.
Electrical next time.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna skip my electrical measurements, and so what that means is on the report, you're not gonna see the efficiency calculations, because we can't calculate efficiency if we don't know how much power we're using to do the work. So now the notes section. This notes section is the only section in this program that is private. Everything else you saw here is gonna appear on the report somewhere that the customer could potentially see. This page is where you can put, and this will get passed on from project to project. So down here in the historical data, you'll see the notes from all of the previous projects. Now,
Now, is that just, and that's just on my end, or? is
anyone in
it
your company
anyone?
that services this air conditioner will see
Okay,
those
alright,
notes.
just verifying, okay.
So the idea behind it, and what I always joke about is any disparaging comments you wanna make about the customer, put them here, you know. you know, the dog's cool, but, you know, grandma might bite you. You know.
He fits right in.
Well, that's why you're there for the air conditioning, huh?
Customer is clueless.
Yeah, you put that stuff here, but you could also put in, that you know, you change the fan.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, cause we run across that a little bit, so, you know, it's like, hey, what did we do or
Mhm.
whatnot, so.
Yeah, put that here. And that is also, I should mention, see this little icon down in the right bottom corner of the screen? We call it the hotkey icon. And you can access the notes at any time during the project. You can start the data stream at any time. You don't have to wait till you get to this page to start your stream. You can start the stream from there at any time.
Can you do that again, please?
Down here, right bottom corner.
Guys paying attention, green button?
Yeah.
Green
Brian?
button, very right bottom.
Brian.
corner.
Yeah, just hit it. No.
Yeah, the little green button right
Okay.
there, but it don't.
Yeah, well, I don't have anything else. It's gonna show it.
No.
He's not in the project.
You're not in the project.
Oh,
so
I'm
you-
not, okay, that's how I'm not. in
You
the
only
project.
have a few options.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah,
so-
the stream is
I
not
was in the
there.
project, all right.
So data streaming is a premier feature. That's part of the $50 a month subscription thing. And so if you're not in a project, MeasureQuick doesn't recognize you as a subscriber. So it's not
It's
available
not
just on the
gonna
gauge
sell.
screen. You gotta be in the project in order for all these options to come up. So next is to benchmark the system. And so now, being that this is a new unit to MeasureQuick, it has not been benchmarked. Benchmarking is to kind of set the goalposts for future service calls on how the system's supposed to run. And this is to the point of, there's not a lot of point in comparing your temperature splits and pressures, you know, from this service call to a service call next year if the operating conditions are different. And chances are they will be. So, you know, today, you know, right now, a temperature split of, you know, 13 degrees is expected given the humidity load. But, you know, any other time, you might be expecting closer to a 20-degree split. So this is where benchmarking
Can you go
comes in.
back to that page for a second?
This one?
Yeah, thanks. So, guys in the room, when we see temperature split, yeah, it should be 18 to 20 degrees. Rule of thumb, right? What's different?
Humidity,
It's all gonna be based on the conditions, right?
yeah.
So, this is another cool option or feature of this app. Is, yeah, we expect 20 degrees on a dry day, but how come I got a 9-degree split? Right?
Sometimes there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Extenuating circumstances.
thank you.
So now what this is gonna try to do is when you benchmark this, it's going to now say that under these operating conditions, this is normal operation for them. This is what's expected. And now through all of Jim's little psychometric charts and algorithms and everything, we can extrapolate how it should run under different operating conditions. So right now I'm getting it's prompting me, it's saying that my refrigerant charge is out of range and so is the airflow. So I can still benchmark it, but it would be under duress. So I will do that just for the sake of doing it. But ideally, you should not benchmark the system unless you have dialed it in as well as it can be given its installation circumstances. You could have two identical air conditioners, but in two different houses or buildings, and they're going to run differently just because of variances in ductwork design and equipment installation. Line set lengths, anything can affect this stuff. Example I often use is in my house. I bought my house a few years ago, and my furnace is way oversized. It's a 100,000 BTU furnace in a 1,100 square foot ranch. So, yeah, but it runs. It's fine. Whatever. Thank God it's a PSC motor because my static pressure runs over an inch. So mine's benchmarked, but it's benchmarked under duress. So I have the refrigerant charge dialed in perfectly. Airflow is actually in cooling. it's only a 2.5 ton air conditioner, so the fan speed for cooling is the lowest speed, fan speed for heating is the highest speed. And for cooling, I actually have a little bit high airflow. I'm running like 1150 CFM on a 2.5 ton unit. So I'm running the lowest airflow I can, and I'm just barely within tolerance on it. But needless to say, mine's benchmarked under duress because of the static pressure. So now it's saying that, you know, this is kind of normal for this. And so now I can save my test out snapshot of measurements. So at this point, I should have corrected the refrigerant charge before I benchmarked it, for one thing. And now before I test out, I should have had also, you know, everything should be as you're going to leave it now. So the first thing it takes me to is the subsystem review. Most of these categories are set based on measurements taken with the probes, but there are a few that are not. I cannot measure the performance of the condensate drain, so I have to manually say that, you know, the drain is intact and flowing. Outdoor and indoor equipment condition. This is just cosmetic condition. We've obviously documented the hell out of the performance of it, so now you're just saying that it, you know, is it physically in good shape or not. So this is where, you know, if whoever's cutting the grass, you know, needs to learn how to run a weed whacker, quit tearing up the condensing unit outside. You want to document that stuff here. This is customer facing. This will be on the report. You want to say that, you know, well, anything you observed, cover your ass here. Cooling capacity is on the low side because of the high humidity load. Electrical efficiency, I didn't take electrical measurements, so it can't calculate the efficiency. So a few things missing. But now we get to the pro report. So this is the final report. This has everything on it, test in and test out. Starts out with the cover page, company logo, employee picture, or again, picture of the employee's favorite vehicle that they'll never have, and test in vitals. This is the exact same set of measurements that you saw earlier. This is the test in part. These are the same numbers that were captured at the beginning of this whole endeavor. Score breakdown, right? And then now, this time though, being that this is the pro report, this is the test in measurements. So these are the numbers that were snapshotted when I hit the button from the probes. So this is where all the forensics come in on what's what.
Phil, remember you were asking something before about how to see that?
Excuse me.
So now all the hard measurements are captured here. This will all be saved in the cloud for future reference. And if you look down here, performance calculations, you notice the bottom 4 lines are blank. We can't, I didn't take electrical measurements, so we don't have efficiency calculations. And then it goes to the test out part of the score. So now, remember what I said about being aware of what everything is doing? Why is my test out score lower than my test in? You got a 78% score. That's not good. Well, what happened? Well, if you remember, I was teetering on the brink of refrigerant charge being out of range, and it just happened to jump out of range when I hit the button. So now I have, what's my subcooling? My subcooling dipped down to 5.9. Right here. So because the subcooling took a dip right as I hit the button, it took my score down even lower. Again, it's heartless. It doesn't care how close you are. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. And so that's pretty much the end of the report. Has the faults on it. Remember, I checked the boxes for clean the fan, added refrigerant. That's all documented right there. Project photos are on the report, as are the equipment photos. And that's it. And I am in the PDF viewer on my phone, on the iPad, by the way. You can export these reports any way you'd like. You want to text message them, email them, whatever you'd like to do, you can do that in here. And so that's pretty much the end of the project. So one last checklist on the project. Gotta check all the boxes, but I always point this out. Ensure the system cycles back on at 4:30 on a Friday. And don't say we didn't warn you. We put it in the checklist. If you didn't skip through the checklist without reading it, you'd have caught that.
Final idiot check.
Yes. So
Is
that's
there a cue to put the disconnect back in?
that's just it. Yeah, we should. No, not, whoa! Don't say that too loud. Don't say that too loud, because you know what? Now that you mention it, we prompted you when to put the probes on. We didn't tell you to take the probes off.
That's true.
Shit! If everybody followed our directions exactly, there'd be a whole shitload of field piece probes at every house.
And that's okay, look how much money you make, right?
Well, we don't make any money on
True-
field piece
true
probes.
tech,
Field
yeah.
piece makes money on field piece probes. The cool thing though is you wouldn't have to deploy your probes when you get there. All you have to
That's
do is
it.
walk around and turn them on. You just be like, oh yeah, some other measure quick schmuck was here before me. The app didn't tell him to take his probes off, so he left them. So this is the end of the project here, guys. If anybody has any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Guys? What, Vince?
Vince goes straight to the source for his questions.
Vince used to live next door to Jim.
Oh, really?
And Dale, how about you? Are you on this?
I'm still a little confused, but I'll get it.
What are you confused about?
Jumping to all this.
What do you say?
Turning it on.
He lost you at the bakery.
Yeah, just the, you know, from the beginning, I know you were jumping around a lot, but,
Can you go back to the gauges?
Yeah, I think it should be.
In the grid?
Application.
I started off.
2 hours?
No, I started project.
This-
I just got
This is
messed
hard
up a little bit.
to do.
Like in the very beginning, you start project.
That's, no, I mean,
Then what's next?
that's the part.
It walks you through step by step
Oh, yeah,
after
I'm
that.
looking at it.
So,
I've never actually done a.
so once I
I'll
get
be
you
on
all
this
clear to
page, just
finish the
click my-
project, I'll finish the
tablet and
project
go.
and I'll start another one so you can see that.
I just take pictures of the screenshots.
What about like even like, you know, like license?
I'm just thinking, I mean, I've already worked it, I've seen some of it, but
Yeah,
just,
30 frames, not 60.
it started jumping, I got lost.
Well, right from the get-go, you started, and then, you know, the big thing is placements, cause, you know, you just even talked about that. A lot of stuff we're sticking in duct work
Yeah.
or.
Yeah, that I got, yeah, that's the
Vents,
problem.
yeah.
Yeah,
But the vents, we're not.
we're not doing that.
Yeah, we're just putting
Yeah.
in the return plumbers and the supply.
Cause we're talking ladders and moving
Yeah,
like ceiling tiles, cause we do
some
all
buildings we work
commercial,
in,
we don't do
we're not
residential,
gonna do
so.
Right, so, I mean, you may have to put it in the ductwork.
Yeah.
You may have to do that. I mean.
We do.
You know what I mean?
I ain't gonna lie about it.
I mean, especially with systems zoned and stuff, cause then it really like,
Yeah, yeah.
you might be in this register, but this register's on a
But see,
thermostat in the other
actually, you just
room.
brought up a thing too,
You
'cause, you know, this has gotta be running on, you know, traditionally full load. But then, now if you have a zoning, was there anything on a zoning system here?
It goes into very little detail about zones. And actually, I didn't notice it, this is a new update on this, and I did not see it in here, and I
Cause it's,
mentioned it.
you know, cause even, that was the thing I was having problems, cause every time I tried to update just now, cause it wanted me to
Yeah.
update, it failed.
Error
like
1,
4
2, 3.
Yeah, yeah.
So what we think, there are two different types of updates you can do with an app. There's an app store update. Like
Mhm.
a lot of other apps have just you update to the app store. We do that, but it's a lot quicker sometimes to just throw a quick little update in. So it's an app store update, but what you're seeing when you hit yes or no, that's an in-app update. And we're really pushing our limits right now as to how far we can update the app within the app, not through the app store. So if you were to delete the app and reinstall it, you'd be on version 3.0.23.
So it was saying something, like at the bottom,
Yeah.
like I took
Yeah.
401 of like or READ 5 or something like
Yeah,
that.
so now we're at a point where we need to update the app in the App Store.
Just updated, cause I just
Yeah.
updated mine to the App Store.
Every time you
Yeah,
turn it on, you
that's
don't.
Well, but if you update to the App Store, you're not getting the latest version.
Oh, you're not?
No, there's,
Yeah.
the app has been updated internally
Ah.
since then. That's when you hit yes or no, that's an in-app update.
So then, so let's.
So the fix is next week, we're probably going to push a big update into the App Store so that when you download the app next week out of the App Store, it will be up to date until next time.
So, yeah.
But for right now, the trick is turn your Wi-Fi off and download, update over cellular, and it usually goes through.
Okay, yeah, cause I'm through the Wi-Fi right now.
Right,
here.
and this iPad is strictly, I don't have data on this iPad, I cannot, there's yet another update, and I can't get it to go through.
And then let's not just skip over it, but the zoning.
Yes,
So, cause we do have quite a bit of, facilities out there that, utilize stuff like that.
so you need to have all the zones turned on, so that all the VAV boxes and everything
Which
are open.
that is kind of like a null and void
Yeah,
point.
that's-
You're not gonna get traditionally everyone
Yeah.
on.
So you could have issues with high static pressure if not all the dampers are open.
The other thing.
Well, do you guys use VAVs or do you use reheat? If it's just doing reheat boxes.
Everything.
Yeah,
low
I'd say we're
static.
all over the place with
Yeah.
it.
And we've got multi-stage equipment too.
Yeah, when you have the VFD too, like when I was charging at the post office, it starts off pretty strong, but then that blower motor starts winding down, goes down to half the CFM. That changes all your numbers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you benchmark something like, cause once you charge, you're in the beginning, then all of a sudden, cause it happened to
Well,
be a drop down.
Yeah, you need charge mode or test mode on it to force it into high
And it
speed.
wasn't test mode, I had a test mode.
Or just bump it up to 60
You know,
hertz.
I think when you were running it, I don't think you had it on full second stage high. But that, also too, you know what, you're running through the Symbian.
Yeah, it's right through Symbian.
Yeah, so on that, which is a little different.
We can still force it to go to
You can
second
still
stage.
force it, but I wasn't there, but just from it sounds like you were still like, say, like you were on this stage of it, not actual
Test
full.
mode.
I mean, should
On that.
you max it to 60 hertz? I mean, sometimes that might be too much, or with the,
No, cause
Well, they can go
depending-
over 60 hertz.
Yeah,
well,
they
yeah,
can.
yeah.
Depending on what we've been dropping them down because of,
Yeah.
sounds like you're blowing them
Yeah,
apart.
yeah.
So,
We go down to the-
And most of the stuff at the post office is constant volume anyway. So you just gotta max everything out to charge it and turn it back down again.
turn it back down.
Yeah.
I think what you'd have to watch out for are static pressure issues.
Yeah.
If not
Yeah,
all
which
the
has-
dampers are open, it's gonna, that thing is rated for 1.5 inches of static. So, I think that's kinda high, but then again, it's commercial, I'm not sure what commercial usually goes
Yeah,
to.
'cause I was having static pressures. in the
Yeah.
office.
I mean, these are little gray areas that we're talking about. I mean, overall, it's a great product. We've had really good, use and work of it. It's just, sometimes
I
it's,
love it.
well, the majority of the time, you're not really getting, you're not getting an A plus.
Yeah.
It's just not a
Yeah.
real world scenario.
Yeah.
I mean,
A lot of systems are wrong.
C.
I mean, but let's look at some of the equipment
Yeah,
age.
that's what I was gonna say. So
I mean, we got stuff out there that's older than I am, it's like.
I mean, yeah, I can't imagine all the screwed up shit you guys see. I mean, it just, at Ben, you know where Benvenue Labs is in Bedford?
They used to work there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Bedford.
I mean, they would bring in Wojak to their contractor. They would say, okay, you know what, we wanna turn this conference room into offices. And you'd have one thermostat on the wall and put in offices that each have their own vent, but not their own thermostat.
Yeah.
And then people, somebody's freezing, so they bring in space heaters in one office, and all the rooms are completely jacked up from what the building was originally designed as.
Yeah.
So that was just what I saw. I can't imagine all the shit you guys.
And after they're done, they call the HVAC guy, hey, there's something going on.
Yeah.
That build out's been done probably twice since you were there too, so who knows when.
Over and over and over.
I've seen a system that had 12 inches of static and all of the vents closed and it exploded the ductwork.
Yeah.
Wow.
12 inches of static.
Yeah, the high pressure systems, we've seen, 3 to 5 inches. And, those things are heavy duty tin work.
My mom does that in the car. She, I don't like the air blowing on me. So he closes all the vents and then wonders why the car won't cool down.
All right, anybody else got anything for Jimmy?
Dale, did you wanna see going through how to start a project again?
Yeah.
Just very quick,
Yeah.
cause like I said, once I get a handle on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause
Just real quick, just boom, boom, boom.
It seems like most guys in the room right now who have the system here know how to set up the probes and where to put them at.
Yeah, that
but
I don't have a problem.
most
I
of the
don't have
phone
a problem.
calls come in with just starting the project and what information to input.
So yeah, big green start button. Hit it. Tell it the project type. Like I'd stick to the guided workflows.
Yeah, now we go to the AC, install startup, the
Yep.
AC or heat pump installation.
But you guys are probably a lot of package units.
Yeah, the one that
So
we'll be
watch out
working
for
on
that.
recently will be that top one.
Right.
Yeah, the package of the rooftops, yeah, I've been doing split systems, so.
So split system, look like that, and then it prompts you create a new site or or select existing equipment.
So we create a new site. right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, well, are you iPhone or Android phone?
Android,
Okay, so it's not gonna help you with this. If you're an iPhone user, notice how the add or select is bold print. That means that there is an existing piece of equipment nearby. So it's our subtle little way of trying to prompt you. But yeah,
But that's through iPhone.
what's that?
That was through iPhone though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It'll look the same on Android, except you won't have the bold print. That bold typeface right there, it won't be on Android. But yeah, what I would do is I would always look for, because you don't know, right? You don't know who in your company may have been there before you. Somebody else in the company may have gone there and established this piece of equipment in the database. So if I were you, I would hit add or select equipment. And then if this is blank, you know that there's nothing here, so now you would create a new piece of equipment.
oh, that's okay.
Because nothing.
And then after that, it just prompts you to do.
Yeah, so it'll go like this,
so
if the
it's
equipment's
not-
there,
If it's not there, then go back and.
yeah. So either way, it's gonna take you to this page.
Right.
And now you advance through, hit the next button, step by step. Turn your probes on, and I think mine are shutting off, I'm at my 2-hour mark.
Yeah, every 2.
Yeah, my probes are all shutting off.
Okay.
But what it'll do is, you'll go through here, step by step, you'll get to the page where it has all the site information, equipment information. I think you'll recognize the page after this.
Well, it helped already in the beginning, so now I know what the first couple things, and I should be able to take off.
That's only until the next update, then it's all gonna change.
Yeah, I'll be on the phone. Hey.
I can't argue that.
Jimmy, can you put your phone number down for everybody,
Yeah,
please?
right.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah, I'll need that phone number. What's your last name? Emrick?
I knew that was coming.
There we go.
Go ahead and do that, Dale. I wanna see that on YouTube.
What's that?
HVAC moron dials 911. That would be funny.
2, 3, 4.
Some people have called 911 for their pizza being late.
Yeah.
seriously.
And your last name's Emrick?
Yeah.
Emrick, okay.
Come on up here
Oh, you spelled it right.
Cool. That helps. So I should do it.
for that. So, thanks for doing this for us.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated, and
Oh, thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, you guys.
That's Al, by the way.
This is Al.
Yeah, take a look at the wall right next to you there.